Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Destination Newry, and to our look at times past in the Newry area. And this week I'm joined by a very special guest, Mickey Mullen, who is a blacksmith by profession. And Mickey, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Now, Mickey, you're a long-term resident of Carrickmacloone, but you actually started life in Liverpool.
Well, yes, I was born in Liverpool in 1940, and the parents and myself were blitzed out of it, so to speak. So they came back to Killeavy in 41. We arrived at Carrickmacloone, number 4, Carrickmacloone.
And this is the house.
Of the house, yes. That was 1954. And on my way to school, the local school, South School, I became interested in the blacksmith shop belonging to a Patrick Connolly. There was 2 blacksmith shops at Cloudbridge at the time, Connolly's and a McGill, a Joe McGill. Over the next number of years I became very interested in blacksmithing work, and I had a sort of a penchant to go at that, you know.
Now, if we can just take a look, Mickey, at this image here.
Yes.
I notice there's a lot of implements outside, and I presume that they would have been made in the fire. They would have been forged.
Oh, they'd be all hand forged. There was no hydraulic machinery in them days. They all forged on the anvil and fire, and he shod all the horses, that is to say, putting new steel shoes on the horses.
So I suppose, Mickey, in a way, we could nearly liken Cloudbridge at the time to the modern day motorway service.
Well, you could do that, yes. I remember 6 or 8 horses waiting in queue to be seen to, and when he wasn't walking the horses, he'd be making ploughs and repairing ploughs. Yeah,
there's a lot of implements outside here.
That's right, yeah.
And then, of course, we've got what looks like the Sleeve Gullion. The steam train going up behind.
I'm told that's the Sleeve Gullion, and funny enough, she's still running.
That's right. It's in the railway preservation in Whitehead.
That picture will be taken, I suppose, around about 43 to 45, 48.
Right.
That particular photograph.
It's a very striking image, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in fact, if we just take a wee look now. That's how it looks today with the lay-by. And then, of course, the other shot that we're going to see now is where Joe McGill had his forge.
Yes, just behind that wall that we're looking at there.
So on each side of the road, we had a blacksmith shop.
Yeah. Joe McGill, by the way, he had a brother called Harry, and he could make a cart, wheels and all, finished, completed and painted, with a bag of tools, about 6 or 8 bits, basic tools. Yeah,
just basic tools.
Basic tools, a few hatchets, a few hammers, a few spoke shaves. Very little in the way of machinery. And that man could make a cart from the ground up, so to speak.
And Mickey, those skills wouldn't be available today, would they?
You would travel up and down Ireland for maybe a week now to find one man that'd be capable of doing it. I
remember some years ago, now I suppose it'd be 20 years, you'd be able to tell me. I remember the late Stephen Malone made a barrel gypsy caravan.
That's correct. He did. He made several of them, as a matter of fact, over the years.
Yeah.
I remember the one you're talking about, all right. As a matter of fact,
I think it was the Elmore family in Omeath
done a wee bit of work on it myself, because I would go to Stephen in the evenings.
Yeah.
I worked there for 3 or 4 years. Well, I was making gates mostly. But yes, Stephen got into that and made coaches
and they actually
all sorts of horse-drawn vehicles.
Stephen's brother actually took over McGill's forge, didn't he?
Stephen's brother? No, Stephen left. He had a brother called Pat worked there, but then Pat went to Canada.
Yeah.
And no, Stephen...
Pat actually operated horse-drawn coaches in Central Park in New York. His son actually carries on that business today.
That's correct, yes.
But wasn't Hugh Malone, he worked in the forge too, didn't he?
He did for a while, but then he went to England. I think he went to Derby to work at the locomotive seen in the last picture there. He was a master smith, forge work, very well and all that. Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
And I remember Mickey, the late Stephen, telling me that when Pat went to New York, he got a job with the New York Police Department as a farrier,
Quite possibly.
shoeing the
yes.
horses for the police. And Pat told me himself that he had to actually undergo examinations.
Oh, he would have surely over
You know,
there, yeah.
but it wasn't just a matter of walking in and saying I'm a blacksmith.
No,
you know.
no.
But to get back to Connolly's, we have a fine image here of what you tell me, Paddy Connolly's father.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, it was Paddy's father that made that. Maybe 10 years after Clough Chapel was built.
Now this is at the grotto that
Yeah.
people would be familiar
Yes.
with at Clough Chapel.
That's right.
And it was actually, I think, Father Devlin was responsible,
I
wasn't
think Father Devlin had that grotto put together, and as I said, Tommy Connolly made that railing.
he? Now this is a very intricate looking image of a cross.
Yeah.
What are we actually looking at there, Mickey?
We're looking at a depiction of, I suppose you could call it a medieval Celtic cross. Do you see this, the half circles in it?
Yes.
That is the form of a Celtic cross. Some blacksmiths or some designers would have put a ring round that. But in that particular one, it's a very old image that there.
Now, Mickey, you said about you'd stop at Clough Bridge with Paddy Connolly, and you got a liking for
I did.
what you saw, and it's a lovely image that you painted there of the queue of horses.
Yeah.
Waiting to be shod or whatever Paddy had to do. But that was on your way to and from Clough School.
That'll be, yes, for the 10 years was at that school.
And of course that was across the road from the present day golf club. The school was there until
That's right.
they were relocated to Edward Street when the British Army sighted the watchtower there.
Correct and right, yeah.
So you left school at the age of 14.
Some months short of 14.
And I believe it was back to basics.
Back to Liverpool.
Back to Liverpool.
My father was going to walk on a big pipe track
Yes.
up about somewhere in Cheshire, and he asked me to go along with him with a view to getting a job there. And being the way I am, I couldn't say no.
Right.
So I went with him anyway, and the first job I got was on the overhead railway in Liverpool,
Yes.
guaranteed £6 a week and tips.
That sounds very, very lucrative, Mickey.
It was very good at the time, but it didn't work out. The school leaving age in England at the time was 15.
Yes.
As I said, I was 3 months or something like that, short of 14. It's just the way I could leave school before the age of 14, the way the year fell, you know.
Yes, yeah.
I never fully understood it, but I came to sign up we started I was showing the rope, so to speak, how to carry the suitcases and how to be courteous and all that sort of thing. And then I came to sign up.
That would have came to you naturally, Mickey.
Well, I don't know how to And they discovered then that I was underage, so they wouldn't start me.
Right.
I didn't know enough to tell a wee fib, you know.
A wee white lie.
A wee white lie. But the next place I went to was over to my father's brother. He worked in the foundry in Camel Laird shipyard.
And they were massive.
They were massive.
Massive shipbuilders.
Yes. They'd be on
the Mersey.
They'd be on a par with
Harlands.
Harland Wolff, yeah. And there again, not being a thinker and afraid to tell a lie. The same thing happened there. I got a job as a tea boy.
Yes.
I often wondered where I would have went, or would I still be here at all if I had it.
Well, you wouldn't have been still in Camel Laird's.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. It's gone. So the next job was I went back to the aunt in Upper Parliament Street, and her and her infinite wisdom, she took me down to the Labour Exchange with a view to getting a job.
Yes.
But that didn't work either because when they discovered that I was underage,
They insisted
Two
on you going to
henchmen
school.
asked me, yes, deport me or forcibly put me to school.
Deport?
Deport, yes.
Oh,
But I kept ahead of them. I kept dodging back and forward over the Mersey on the ferry boat.
yes.
Kept ahead of them.
Yeah.
But they finally caught me and actually did escort me down to the boat.
And you were deported?
Along with my aunt, yeah. Anyway, that's all in the past. I got a job with Jack McCullough then to a neighbour of mine, actually, a second cousin of mine. And funny enough, I hated it when I was at it a while, because I couldn't get at it right. I couldn't get at the fire. Drilling holes and failing holes. You had to fail a hole, a round hole, you had to fail it out square to take the square bars, you see, and it was murderous work. I felt like crying many a morning going to work. But then I fell for it, and I got a wee bit more old-fashioned. I started cutting the square hole out, drill a pilot hole first, you see, and cut the square hole out with a crude oxyacetylene burner that we had at the time, and a wee touch of the file. But I daren't do this, you see, and let him know about it. Just the way they were funny like that. But yes, I grew to love the job, and I couldn't be beat home from it. And while I was there, we'd done all the railings on the 3 bridges across the canal. From that workshop.
You actually told me, Mickey, correct me if I'm wrong, did you tell me something one day about you were working at the railings and the blood actually ran out of your hand?
If you're using a file all day, every day for weeks, we're talking about 2,000 or 3,000 holes to be squared out. And if you're pushing a file, no matter what protection you had, you broke the skin eventually. You know, you could lap a bit of a cloth around it to soften it and that sort of thing. But I did, yeah. I went home any night and blood running the heart of the hand.
Well, now, Mickey, when we look at this image of the quay today, that's the current location of
right, yeah.
P&R.
Yeah.
And just tell us a wee bit, give us a flavour of the work that was done in McCullough's.
Well, they had done the whole cross-section of what had to be done. They looked after the joiners and the carpenters in Newry. They serviced the quarrymen. They done a bit for the railways, albeit not actual railway work, but making brackets for seats and all that type of thing. And
of course they worked at the lighters as well, didn't they?
They did. Well, that was way before my time now. They serviced the lighters, maybe a patch to go on them or brackets to be made or some bit of straightening up to be done.
And was there any work?
That was in old James McCullough's mid-years. That was a constant job, like. They had 2 smiths on that all the time, done nothing, only that. So they were going up down to Portydown, as you know.
That's right,
yeah.
Well, when you were there, Mickey, many people were working in Jack's?
Well, there was only out of 3 in my time. But there was a time there was actually 7 fires going, as we talk about 7 forges going.
Yeah.
There was 2 horseshoers. There was 2 wheelwrights. They'd be
for the carts,
shoeing wheels all day, and then there'd be 2 more doing all the furniture, as they called it, for the carts. You know, the hinges and all them brackets and welding axles and making bands for the nails for the centre of the wheels. And they done a lot of mill work. There was one story told about a big job that they gone with old James and Mr. Bailey of Bailey's Foundry.
That was located out at Bessbrook.
Correct. They walked through one another. Bailey's would have made a lot of casting for them, and they would have done a bit of forge work for Bailey's. That's the way it was. But to go on with this job, it was a 3.5 inch shaft, what they call a lane shaft. It would be running the full length of a mill, a spinning mill, and all the machinery would be driven off it. So when the shaft broke, the whole place closed down, maybe for 6 weeks, until they got a new shaft out of England.
Right.
You just couldn't go over the street and buy one of these things like.
Yeah, over to Jerry McParland.
Correct. This thing we had the best part of 2 or 3 ton, a section of it came in sections already.
Yeah.
But they took a 20 or 30 foot section of this shaft, and anyway, and they decided they would fire weld it and it took them 4 days and 3 nights to do it. A team of 6 men.
Constantly working.
It's hard. Well, they spent a lot of time waiting on the fire.
Yeah.
You know, but in order to weld a shaft like that, you have to do what is termed now upsetting it. If you have a 3-inch shaft, you have to keep hammering it back into itself until it becomes a 5-inch shaft. And when you have the 2 ends done like that, you put it together for a fire weld. You overlap it. It's a special process too, but you overlap it to all intents and purposes, and then you hammer that into itself with a white hot heat. So we're talking about upsetting that, or staving it up as they called it. It had to be lifted bodily and dropped on a steel plate on the floor to thicken it up.
Yes.
And you had to do that back for about 2 foot on each of the broken side, and then you put them together, and that had to be all fire welded and drawn out to the required size. I think it took, if I remember right, I think it took 1.5 tons of coal to do that in 2 fires.
And it was 4 days and 3 nights.
4 days and 3 nights.
6 men.
Yes, from start to finish. I think the money for that time was about 26 or 28 pounds. But that was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what year that would be. I suppose it would be maybe...
Well, Mickey, just when we're talking about
18, 20, 30, something like 1830 or
when
40.
when we're talking about Jack McCullough's, there's an interesting artifact here that people wouldn't realise the history of.
Yes.
This cross is situated in the Dominican garden, down along the boundary with Buttercrane.
Yes.
And tell us what you know about that cross, Mickey.
Well, the story I heard about it was, you see, I have to say in all honesty, I wasn't really interested at the time, but it always stuck with me for some reason or another. That cross was by whatever means it left the Dominican area or the Dominican chapel, for whatever reason, and it became lost. And McCullough bought it in as a piece of scrap, because he done that. Most of the blacksmiths bought in a bit of scrap, or they had their own scrap, but it arrived in his premises anyway, and he recognised it. And the story goes that he got in touch with whoever.
The prior.
It went back to where it came out of in the first place.
And it's now located
down in the garden, yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting story, and a throwback, a real throwback to past days, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, it is surely. That cross, you may not realise, but that cross is about maybe 4,500 weight.
Right.
It doesn't look much sitting there, you know what I mean? But it's very heavy, all made again on the anvil with what they call old Loanmoor iron. There's only one place in Wales where you can get the Loanmoor iron. It was very easy manipulated and fire welded, and you used to say you could weld it like butter.
Well, Mickey, looking at that cross, is that to the untrained eye, is that a skilled piece of work?
There's massive skill behind that. I couldn't describe the skill there is in making that. I couldn't put it into words. But them men done that. They'd have threw a piece of iron in the fire there, and two or 3 hours later, you see this artifact appearing.
Starting
and
to
you'd
form.
wonder how the hell it ever got to that stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Massive, massive, massive.
Well, Mickey, our next image here, again relating to Jack McCullough's, is Sands' Mill, that people would be familiar with in New Street.
I'm surprised they're still there.
And you actually did the gates here. And
myself and a wee chap called Nevin Grattan from Lough Bricklin, a blacksmith, we made those gates in the workshop. They're 16 or 17 foot high, them. And they're all hand riveted, board and tenant to the steel bars, and all the flat bars are riveted onto the horizontal bars. But the blinking gate was that big, we couldn't turn it over in the workshop. The workshop wasn't high enough.
Right.
So I had to carry it out onto the street, with a lot of help, of course. There's a half a ton in that one leaf of a gate.
A half a ton?
Half a ton. That's unbelievable, but I remember well.
And Mickey, what sort of time span was involved in the manufacture of that gate?
There's not an awful lot of work on it, a lot of drilling on it, and there's not an awful lot of work on it. If it was ornamental, there could be a month's work on it.
Right.
But it's not, it's just straightforward.
Straightforward gate.
That back stile would be drilled in 4 or 5 places, and then a tenon formed on the crossbars, and they'd be riveted through back and front.
Well, I'm sure, Mickey, you must get a quiet sense of pride when you drive past and see that still there.
I do, yeah. Every time I go past, I have a look at it, and I think of me and wee Nevin Grattan. He was only about the size of me, but he was half his weight again. You know, with the shoulder again, that rolling that down the yard on tubing to take it onto the street, and wait until 6 or 7 hallions would be about strong fellas to turn it over, stand it up again, and roll it in again, and then let it down to finish the underside of it.
And then how did you transport it to Sands' mill?
Do you know, I forget how that happened, but I have a notion that Mr. Mitchell up at the corner,
Bob Mitchell
is right. I think his lorry was commandeered
to take it.
McCullough would just wag the finger, and that was all it would take. You know.
Very good.
I need this left.
Well,
there's no problem.
You talked about ornamental work, Mickey, and we can see here our next image. These railings going up the steps at the Newry Cathedral.
Yes, yes.
And I'd imagine that was a difficult task.
That was a very, very difficult task. There was a chap working with us. He later became an ambulance driver. A chap from Killevy as well, Anthony Hart. He was with us at the time. Do you see, you get McCullough used to say, I'm getting a new lad next week, but he mightn't stay away.
Right.
He didn't like the dirt and the black and the hardship. And then you might get a lad that was keen and he'd stay a couple of years and maybe move on. Nobody ever stayed in it, only myself.
Right.
So what does that say about me? Like, wasn't right in the head. Anyway, Anthony Hart and myself done that with an awful lot. You see, that's curved and raising at the same time.
Yeah, and you see that on the steps.
It's not too bad doing a curve, but when you're curving and raising, the whole horizontal bar, it has to come and twist. You know what I'm saying? You can radius it all right, but this end's going wrong because it's out of line with this end. Because
so you have to be aware of the raise all the time.
Yes, it's in and out of the fire. It's in and out of the fire constant, and you tweak it with what we call dog bars. It's a little bar. You can make them up, you know, and you hold one and you put that wee twist from A to B, and you go to the next section. That's why it was so difficult. That there's it's approaching 2.5, maybe 3, maybe 5 hit that horizontal bar, you know. Well, and then that had to be either hot punched or drilled and squared out with a file to carry your vertical bars, and it'd be riveted down the bottom. But yes, it was. They done that, you see, in order to. It's nearly like a dream to me now. In order to take the cathedral frontage back from the street.
Yeah.
Hence the steps. So that's.
And then we have this image of the overall railing at the cathedral garden.
Yeah. Well, I refurbished bits and pieces that got rotted away and bent and twisted. I suppose in the 60s, 70s. But McLaughlin's of Dublin, Inchicore Works, they made that railing and the gates in the first place, and any ironwork that was done about the cathedral when it was built.
They actually did a lot of the ecclesiastical work, Maggie, didn't they?
I think they done it all, definitely in the south.
I remember delivering loads of steel into McLaughlin's
yes.
in Jamestown Road in Inchicore, and it was a nightmare of a place to go to because it was always very, very busy, and there'd be delays and. Yeah. But it was interesting. It just brought those memories back when you mentioned McLaughlin's.
Aye.
You know.
Oh, they were very skilled, but they were very big. They were massive that time, like. But the country was full of new ironwork at the time. You know.
Yeah.
It came down from the Victorian and Edwardian era, and them skilled people were still there. You know.
If we look at the next image that we have here. We're back over to the Dominican Chapel.
Yes.
And I know this is something that you have sleepless nights
about. Many a sleepless night. They refurbished the chapel, they put a new roof on it and that sort of thing. And we were doing the railings out the front, refurbishing and making new sections for the wheelchair access.
Aye.
And the builder was pinning the walls and tidying up the walls, so he was scaffolded up to the eaves, as they're called, where the spouting would run.
Yeah.
But we had occasion to go up to take that cross down. There's a couple of pieces missing off it, rotted away and fell down. And there's a chap called Colin O'Rourke walking with me at the time from Jonesborough. But Mickey, not being a thinker, just went and done the job. We got a roof ladder, and went up the roof ladder and a few pieces of scaffolding tube and formed a bit of a base just at the base of the cross in order to stand on. And that cross, there's 4 legs on it going down over a big lump of timber which is coming up from the infrastructure on a taper and 4 bolts, and 2 bolts in each leg. So we got the bolts out and we got the lead stripped off, but then the job was to get these legs run down about 2 foot down the timber frame. I wasn't as tall as Colin. I'm standing on tippy toes on a 2-inch round scaffolding tube, nothing between me and the ground, thought nothing of it. And I couldn't get that last 1/4 inch to get it off. But we managed it at the end of the day, and we got it laid down on the roof. Now that there, as I said, that's another thing that we catch out weight-wise. There's 250 to 300 weight on that. So how did we get that over our heads? And I mean over our heads. And get it down, take it away, do it up, and take it back and put it on the same way. I should have been locked up at the time. Seriously. Should have been locked up. Wasn't right in the head. Wouldn't be worth lifting if we had to fall. That there's 70 foot of the ground.
Oh yeah, you can see it there clearly in that picture. And did you actually?
There's a picture of it there.
Did you actually repair the cross on the roof?
Oh no! I'd had to go back to the workshop for 2 or 3 days to be repaired.
How did you get it down?
We let it down on a rope over the side. There was no crane. You couldn't get a crane around in there.
2 of you let this cross down.
Yep, let it slide down the roof ladder, over the eaves and down onto the footpath that runs around the...
Now, looking at that cross, Mickey, from that image, could you give us an idea as to the size of it? What height is it?
It's 4 foot from the base. The 4 legs that I talked about that was drilled and bolted to from that base it'd be over 5 foot, 5'6". But the actual cross itself was only about 4 foot.
So then after you did the refurbishing in the workshop, you had to repeat the performance.
Correct and right. Pull it
back up onto the roof and get it, handle it over and get it back into the base again.
But you see, if I was using my head, I would have got the builder to do that. He had plenty of men, we were only 2. So we weren't better than 2 lads, like, well, I was about 22, like. Colin was, he was a big strong fella and taller than me.
As a matter of interest, Mickey, what was the wages like then?
This is an annoying bit. I at 4,500 that time for all the railings, refurbish the old ones, make up 40 or 50 foot of new ones, do that and do the guttering. I repaired the guttering right along them 2 eaves. There's an old cast iron guttering and they couldn't get it. So I patched it and cut out a piece of cast iron and profiled it into the shape and welded it into it. Done the job well, like, but no, I didn't. I got paid for it. There's no doubt about that. Paid the last shilling for it, but I didn't get any money out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It went on. I couldn't say to myself, there's £500 over the top. It doesn't work like that with us, you see. But anyway.
It was done anyway.
Nightmares.
Well, working on your own account now, Mickey, you got different jobs, and here's a cross from the gates at Clog Chapel again.
Yeah.
And what exactly is this cross?
That is a Celtic cross sitting on top of a cut granite stone
pillar.
pillar. There's two of them. The old cross that I took off there, don't know what happened. Maybe a lorry caught it or something. But it was badly damaged, and it was a silly thing to start repairing it, so I made a new one.
So that's actually that's a new cross.
That's a new cross, aye.
And roughly when did you make that, Maggie?
Oh God, you have me now.
Be late 70s, sort of.
Around about the 70s, yeah.
I was thinking that.
See, I had to do that because one of the gates was badly rusted and it was breaking apart.
Well, that's the gate that we have here.
That's
now.
correct. That's the one.
That's the left-hand gate as you're going into the chapel.
That's right.
And this cross sits on top of that pillar.
Top of that pier, yeah. A local man that told me done all that granite work there. I heard that a man called Dan Posty, Dan O'Hare, they called him Posty, he was originally a postman.
Is that the man that lived up the Fork Hill Road?
Correct and right, yes.
Where Patrick Fearn...
I heard the story that he actually built that granite, whether he cut the granite stone or bought it in like that, I don't know.
And of course Clog Chapel was opened on Easter Sunday 1916.
That's right, yeah.
And we're heading towards the centenary.
That's right.
And we have another image of you here looking at the right-hand gate, and you were telling me that it's badly in need of refurbishment.
Badly in need of refurbishment. I'll steal it one of these days and get it done.
Now again, to get back to what we were talking about earlier on, if we take a look here, those railings, just when you were talking about the difference. These are at the Catholic Working Men's Club, aren't they?
I think that's the Catholic Working Men's property there, yeah.
Now,
you see the cast iron posts?
Yeah.
They most likely would have been made in Bailey's Foundry, way back when that place was built. If not, they'd have been made in Ballybay, because they sort of specialise in that sort of stuff, you know. It's like the newel post at the bottom of a set of wooden stairs, if you notice. Victorian type thing. But that railing was put together with the old Victorian cast iron posts, and it's a fairly modern railing. The finials on the top of the bars, crossbars there, they are turned on a lathe as opposed to being made in the fire.
Now I think we've actually got an image here. If we look on, move on. This is an image of a railing made in the fire, isn't it?
I made that for local builder Paul Madden. Now again, the original cast iron posts, I had nothing at all to do with them, only walk into them. But
now that's actually outside the parochial house.
That's right.
In Hill Street.
That's right.
And the difference then, that's the difference in the two railings between the forged railing.
Correct.
And the other one is
those wee finials, they were made on the bar and on the anvil. And you had to make tools for them different profiles, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the way that was done. And I'm afraid I pulled a wee stroke there. There's a little collar sits down over that top finial on top of the crossbar.
Yes.
And I couldn't get them. They should be cast iron to keep them original with the rest of the railings along there. Couldn't get them, so I made them up in lead. I bluffed a wee bit, but
at this point, I wanted to disclaim all responsibility. Any legal writs or communications should be addressed to Mickey Mullen. But getting back, Mickey, to what you were saying, I meant to say to you earlier on, the very name, I mind your father, the late Mickey, and you're the 5th generation, aren't you?
5th generation Michael, yes.
And you have a son, Michael?
And a son, Michael.
And any grandchildren yet?
We're waiting on him now.
So there's actually 6 generations of the name?
That's right, and they were nearly all stone cutters, funny you know.
All in the stone cutting?
Yeah.
And you're the first man sort of that broke away from that?
That's right, that's right.
So...
I shall make it back to it yet.
Well, I suppose anything's possible, Mickey.
They were all quarrymen and stone cutters and well drillers. And there's very few of them left now too. The machine does all that now. And tell me, when you look, you're today you're still in that job. You're still in
in the fabricating, but
Well, I'm retired, like, so I'm only footing about now.
yeah, but I mean, does it sadden you to see the old ways?
Well, no, funny enough, I was getting very
Disappear.
disillusioned about 5 years ago because it was dying out as I thought, but I got an awful surprise. There's an association of blacksmiths based around Dublin, but
Yes.
from all over the south, and I was very fortunate through a chap that I run about with to these weekends, a wee chap called Jerry Loughlin up in Sea Finn there.
Yeah,
He's one of the what I would call the new age blacksmiths.
new
And
generation.
I'm going to make a boast now. He is as good as there is in Europe.
Well, that's
There's
praise,
no
that's
doubt in
praise
my
coming
mind.
from you, Mickey.
Well, he is. I know he is. And his compatriots, to varying degrees, they're as good as there is in Europe. But Jerry's very keen, loves the game, puts his whole life and soul into it, and very lucky that still
Now, Mickey,
fairly busy, you know, because it all went to the wall with the Celtic Tiger there, and people got caught left, right, and centre, and it's a shame because it puts all these fellas back on their haunches. You know what I mean? There's lads down there had opened up modern workshops and put everything into it, and now there's no work. Some of them branched out into other things just to let they get a living. But I always felt, and McCullough always said it, if it's in your blood, you'll be good at it. And if it's not, we'll get out of it. It's as simple as that. But
Well,
the
it's
same thing applies to good carpenters, joiners, or whatever.
it's the square peg in a round hole
Well, this is it,
ethos, isn't
yeah.
it?
This
You
is
know,
it.
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But what's the name of the association, Mickey?
IABA, Irish Artist Blacksmiths Association.
And they have a website.
They have a website, yes.
And people can actually see Jared Loughlin at work.
You can see him working on, I call them these new devices. I couldn't even switch one on. I'm not interested, but they're a great tool.
Now, Mickey, just while we're talking about the association, the members are drawn from all over Ireland.
All over Ireland, and we're hoping to get. There's a few blacksmiths in Northern Ireland. There was more on they started into the fabricating, all to the Celtic Tiger type thing there, and they bought into. You see, you could buy an awful lot of artefacts from the continent, and especially Germany, France, China. They go down on the bandwagon too. You could buy the makings of a gate and a set of railings from here to the point. You could buy it all across the counter. You didn't do anything at all to it when you stick it together with the welder. A lot of them grew up, you see, and that has sort of spoiled the old traditional way. But people, especially young people, funny enough, they don't want the modern stuff anymore. But then the handmade stuff is very expensive.
Well, I know it's interesting that you mentioned that, Maggie, because I know that Jared Loughlin had a commission with the architects who designed Sean Quinn's
That is
house
correct and
over in
right,
Fermanagh
yes.
in Cavan.
Yes. That's why I say he's as good as there is in Europe, to be fair to him.
And what did he make for Sean Quinn?
The theme of that job he done, he put a set of balustrades on an all marble staircase covering maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 metres return around the top well, as it's called, and the theme was something to do with the bogland. It had a depict bulrushes on it and a few dragonflies through it and a few butterflies. They were all done in stainless steel. You wouldn't see that coming out anywhere in the world.
It sounds a very intricate piece, Mickey.
Oh, it's very, very, very intricate piece. You had 2 or 3 chaps working from there, and that was a 6 months, 9 months job. Like, it's very hard to work stainless steel,
And
then you have to polish it back.
And did he do all this up
He done all that up in Killeeva
Seafin?
there, up in Sea Finn, yes.
And then went over and constructed
and
it
fitted it, that's
in
right.
the house?
Yeah.
And
He
Mickey,
done a job over in Achill Island too, with what would you call it? Like a medieval theme, with showing dragons on it, fire-breathing dragons on a bar top. and Celtic stuff running through it as well. Fabulous job, fabulous work. You need awful patience for that, you know. You need awful skill for it.
You took the word out of my mouth. True skill, Mickey.
Yeah.
And a day in art.
A day in art. Well, hopefully it's not day. No, I think it'll come back again. You can't do it out the blacksmiths at the end of the day, you know.
Well, I know.
It just cannot be done without. That's it. There may not be an awful lot of work for as many of them again, you know. But
are you putting a case forward for a golden card, Mickey, to stay here indefinitely?
No, it's not a matter of that. But
no, I know what you're saying. Well, I know that the association goes to exhibitions all over the country, and a couple of years ago, yourself and Jared, you had 45 or 46 exhibits in a Titanic exhibition, hadn't you?
That's only the beginning of the year there.
This year?
Aye, right, come around Christmas.
Right.
I tend to forget about times. But yes, we had 47 to be exact.
47
and they came from all over Ireland. And they were exhibited there for 6 weeks. And
you actually, you had a lifeboat there?
Well, no, it was presented to them by IABA. We all went down to the other side of Dublin there, where your man stole the paintings out of.
Oh,
Rossborough House.
Rossborough House.
We made a lifeboat up there. I finished. We run at a time because you can't do all them things in one day. I finished it up at the workshop, and myself and Jerry got it finished off and presented it to them in the Titanic. It's a replica of a Titanic lifeboat, oars and all on it. And
lovely.
Bit of rope showing on anchors and all that, seating.
And now
clinker built, by the way. It wasn't just a bit of sheet metal. It was all shaped, the clinker built idea.
Lovely.
And
now you're going to you're going to undertake a commission for the Newry Maritime Association.
Yes,
to mark the loss of the SS Alder.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a bow section, a steel bow section.
That's right.
We're going to sight at Victoria Locks.
Yeah, well, I'm in the position now where I'm a lot of arthritis, and I have a lad that gives me a hand to do the bulwark, so to speak. I'll be instructing him how to cut it and bend it and shape it and that sort of thing, because
and hopefully here at Destination Newry we'll be able to keep a check on the progress.
Oh yes, no problem.
Of this project, how we're getting on. How long do you envisage it's going to take, Mickey?
Nah, I suppose there's 3 weeks work on it, constant work on it, but we have 3 months, haven't we?
Well, we hope to unveil it on the 10th of August at Victoria Locks.
We'll meet the deadline.
Good man, Mickey.
Or day in the attempt.
And thank you very much for coming in today.
Just
never shake the day, have to always shake the right, Mickey.
Just before you close, I think it's worth mentioning the Hive of Knowledge over in Monaghan.
Yes.
Did you get any news about that?
No.
Well, there was 200 blacksmiths from all over the world came and made that and put all their panels in it. The way it worked was a chap in Cork, he made the shape of the beehive, which had a 6-foot footprint and stood 12 foot in the air.
Yeah.
And it was all made out of 60mm round solid bar. Punched through with 6 rings, graduating rings running up to it to form the hive.
A beehive,
that left what we called windows in it. And all these blacksmiths from all over the world, they put their own design into each window. And some of our lads done the same.
And when was that done?
That was done, must be 18 months ago now. It's not erected yet because they couldn't make up their mind whether they were going to galvanise it or let it just go rusty, which wouldn't be a great way of doing it. Like.
And where is it now?
It's sitting over in Monaghan. They'll be erecting it now soon. I think they're going to erect it out in front of the town hall.
Very
but
good.
That was a massive, massive, massive job. We rubbed shoulders, so to speak, with a man called Gazetchu, a Brazilian. Brilliant, brilliant man. He made a life-size horse out of heavy material, and he made it in such a way that it's a puzzle. And the story is that there's a £10,000 prize for anyone worldwide that can take it apart and put it together again. And it seems that a good few tried it, but it didn't work out.
Nobody succeeded.
He made it. And due to the fact that he made it, he knows how it comes apart. It's all loose.
Uh-huh.
You know, you just pull a leg off, but you know you need to know how to do it. His last commission for New Zealand was $6.5 million for some artefact sitting out.
He'll not be working for Newry Maritime Association, Mickey.
He'll not, no.
I don't think there's any threat to your future employment.
He'll not, no.
Well, Mickey,
but men like that was a great experience.
I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, we'll talk again sometime.
And we will talk again,
Yeah.
and we'll be watching with interest our memorial for the Alder.
You'll have your memorial on the date.
Thank you very much, Mickey.
Fear not.
Thank you.
Fear not.